George Bernard Shaw once said that progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Today's Sunday Property Breakfast, and welcome back to it, by the way. We've been away for a while. Good to be back on a podcast.
We have. Yes, absolutely.
We've got loads more subjects coming up. Those, by the way, who are new to all of this, go back into the Buzzpodcasts website and find all the other things we talked about towards the end of last year. Lots of stuff about selling your property, the market, our home selling workshops, which we're also going to talk about again next week. So revisit some of those. But we thought it was time to come back. And one of the reasons we've been away is we have been doing a rebrand. And that is really what we wanted to talk about. There is also some change.
Well, speaking of change, we've got news.
Well, we've got news about our rebrand, but since we decided to do this show, it's also been the news of the election.
Oh, yes, of course.
So we'll talk briefly about that later. No politics, but we will talk briefly about that later. So the big change. You're excited about it, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I mean, you've got ready for the big change. You've shaved off your beard.
Well, yes, I have, actually.
Yes, you
I
have.
don't know that the two were related, although
I think it is. It's new
somehow
beginnings.
linked the two.
Yes, I think it's a whole symbolism of new beginnings. It's very exciting.
Okay, well, anyway, less about the beard, although in fact there is obviously less beard. So, in short, you know us, or hopefully have known us before as Keller Williams. We are now d.fine, and we really just need to explain why we have changed that. In short, Ben Taylor set up Keller Williams in the UK. Keller Williams is an American-based business, 40-odd years old. He was going to set up his own brokerage, but he went to America, met with Keller Williams. He says, I will set up the UK arm because it had never really set up and been a success here. So he set Keller Williams UK up. For business reasons, Ben has decided to now go back to plan A and actually set up his own brokerage. And what he did as a result of that was there were about 50 or 60 people working specifically in Ben's London office Prime, which we're linked to. And he's asked about 4 or 5 agents to join him. And we're very lucky that we're one of those. And that alone, you know, the power of Ben and his skills and the ability. And I thought, if he wants us to be part of this, it would be wrong of us to not then think of that possible change. So it's a funny thing. It's all change, but no change.
I hear you. Although, let's go back to the difference between d.fine and KW.
Okay.
I mean, can you explain the difference?
I think the way to firstly say is not to mention the differences, but to mention the similarities. 90% of it is all the same. The culture, the ethics, the absolute focus on clients' needs and the relationships rather than just transactions of selling houses. All of that remains. The bit we lose is the American bit. And I'm not being rude to any of our American people maybe listening or viewing, but we're losing that American bit. And that was creating, particularly for Ben as the main business owner, but a little bit for us, was creating a bit of clutter on the business side of it. And I think from the branding and marketing side, it wasn't actually adding very much value as a name. As a business principle of the way to run your business, the way to treat people, have a relationship rather than, as I say, a transactional, all of that stays because all of that is brilliant and that's never been challenged. But the Keller Williams name and the American thing wasn't really helping. And d.fine is 90% the same. None of that clutter, which as entrepreneurs is good because you don't want sort of the big clutter of a 40-year-old business that's throughout the world.
Exactly.
Having somebody, you know, dynamic and entrepreneur like Ben as the immediate person we talk to.
He's phenomenal, isn't he? My goodness, yeah.
Because I've also known him for 4 years. You've only sort of known him particularly in the last few weeks.
Yes, I must say, you know, we always say first impressions last. And it's the same when we sit with people, when we do evaluation, first impressions always last. So you always want to put your best foot forward. Well, Ben doesn't even need to put his best foot forward.
Yeah,
he really doesn't. He's remarkable, incredible, and very, very intelligent.
The thing that was interesting, because I'd known Ben for a long time. When he came to me with this idea of this is what we were going to do, I absolutely wanted Candice to be on board as business partner to go with it. And I said, although you said to me, Adrian, I trust you to make the right decisions, because it was originally my business, but you're very, very much part of it. You said, I really trust you because you know what Keller Williams is like, you know what Ben's like. I said, no, I want you to meet with him and see it. You were arguably more enthusiastic and bold over than I was in a way when he was going through the real vision of what we want to do.
Well, yes, because I think for both of us, for you and I, Adrian, is that it really, really sits well with us with what we are trying to achieve as a business. And from what I can understand and what I see d.fine can do and what can bring to the table, so to speak, is so dynamic. It's incredible. It's actually, isn't it a game changer for the industry?
That's certainly, and to be honest, going back to his plan A, Ben's background, without this being like a Ben Taylor autobiography, his background was high street estate agency at very senior levels from, being an original estate agent. And he was frustrated about the process. 4 years ago when I joined KW, one of the driving forces for me was that I was never that happy with estate agency, either selling and buying my own homes or working in it as a developer and as a land agent. And this whole relationship versus transaction thing was a big driver. I think the quality, broadly speaking, is poor. And he shares that same vision of this should be better. And he would like to have got to a position, not a charitable position. He's obviously a commercial businessman, but he wants to get to that point where when he's hung his boots up or hung his measuring tool up or whatever you want to call it with his estate agency, that he feels it's in a better place than when he left it. And that's certainly when I retire and my business is taken over by you and others and whoever join us, I would just like to think our business is in a good place, but the industry is in a better place. So we could talk about this for a long time. I don't think the industry is particularly clever and brilliant, and I think a lot of it doesn't work to the benefit of the owners. And that's the thing that bugs me a lot.
Well, yes, we're seeing it time and time again, aren't we?
We do. We could give plenty of examples of where we don't think it works. So having talked about the aesthetics of how it could work, I think for me, this 90% and 10% thing is key. But what that support does by being more local and not American and very much the team that we were working with anyway in London, who will still be the team, that team has now doubled and there's only 10% of the agents actually working with them. So that means that you and I can spend even more time looking after people and looking after their properties. And that,
it's a
to
priority
me,
for us. Absolutely.
is absolutely everything. Is there anything that worries you about it?
No, absolutely not. I'm actually really excited, looking forward to this moving forward. And with what it can deliver.
I think will. One of the things that worried me, I
yes, sorry, Mr. Jones, I should have asked you that question.
No.
What
the reason
what
I asked you
worries
is that I hadn't mentioned this I hadn't said to you that I might ask that. I thought of one thing that might worry me is because when you see the brand and you see the quality of what we do, I think there might be people who we've previously sold for.
Yes.
People whose homes we're currently marketing who'd say, oh, that doesn't really suit you anymore. You seem to have gone more up market. My point about that is our quality of what we do may have gone up.
Yes.
Will go up. And I think that will naturally attract a higher value, of property. That is just natural. But the point I'd absolutely want to make is that if you see value in what we do, doesn't matter what your property value is. If you see value in us, we will sell any property in the areas we cover that we think we can do the right job for you. It does, purely, obviously from a business point of view, it'd be nice to have more expensive houses. It makes business sense. But if you have a straightforward house and think, no, they've now gone a bit market, not at all. If you value what we do, we'll do it for anybody's property.
Yes, I agree.
I think the other thing is we've mentioned about this non-American. We've mentioned about the fact we've got these 3 offices in London, which we can now meet clients in, which would be useful for the buying agent thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Because both the Hampshire areas we cover and Cornwall we know that people out of, well, internationally and nationally will go to London to find properties. Do you want a glass of water, by the way?
Yes, actually I do. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You can tell this is all just properly live, isn't it? I think with all of that support and all of this big picture, it's really important to say that coming back to this 90% thing, we're still hyper-local.
Yep, correct.
We are still working in Fleet and Hartley Whitney in the villages around, and also have a growing presence in Cornwall. This will particularly help the Cornwall market because it will be that, not always popular with the Cornish, by the way, the second home market, the people moving down there to retire, semi-retire. But being honest, that is the driving force of a lot of the market down there. And I think what we still do through some of the core activities we do is we are still incredibly local.
Absolutely.
What do we do on Tuesdays? On second Tuesday of the month?
Yes. Yes, our home sellers workshop.
Yeah. So the home selling workshops we do, we're going to be talking about that next week. Now we're going, making those live as opposed to virtual. We are doing these Sunday property breakfasts. This is a little bit of a promotion about our business. I don't think we've ever done one which is a blatant promotion of our business like this. Now, there's a little bit of me that feels a bit uncomfortable, but we also have to tell people why we've changed our name. And so that's why we're doing it. But nearly all of our podcasts are helping people, informing people about
Well,
what
as
we
I
do.
say, knowledge is power.
Okay. So
Right?
we're empowering people that they know.
There
about
we
us.
go.
Okay.
We're still the same people, just a different brand with a much better system in place, which will continue to just improve as time goes on. Because as we know, things keep changing. Technology keeps, becoming stronger and growing. So we should be able to be in that position where we can actually do that, have the correct tools in an industry that continuously needs to better itself, correct? Having the right systems in place, which saves a lot of time.
Well, what I think we will have, in fact, I know we have because we made sure it's in place.
Yes.
We have got some incredibly good systems, but most businesses, certainly most property businesses, have used those systems as a reason to not have as many people. Because you've got these great systems in place and these mail outs, these client relationship models, the old age, sat in an agent's office making phone calls and all of that, that isn't so time intensive. And I think that's where they've got it wrong. Because they've automated it and people can be sent, in a flick of a switch, a property can be sent to 100 people. There should still be individuals making phone calls to those potential buyers, those possible buyers. They should be talking more to the owner about why somebody should come for a viewing, and that's been missed. So I'm hoping that we've got systems and people, and you need to have both.
Absolutely, 100%.
And one other little thing that you came up with, a brilliant idea again, we're going to do it on Tuesdays every week. We need a name for this. What did I call it? Yes. The Coffee Shop Property Social.
Oh, that's a bit of a mouthful. Can we come up with a better name? What do you think?
I think if anybody out there can come up with a better name, tell people what it is, and then they might be able to come up with a catchy title for it.
So what we have found is that there's so many people that want to sit down with us just to have a chat about their property, anything down to decluttering, finding the right decorator, little things that niggle them at night that actually keep them up. And
so they don't want a valuation. They don't want us intruding.
Not necessarily.
They don't necessarily want the whole home selling workshop thing.
Possibly.
They might just want to nip in and...
Maybe. So I think, what it's about is just people coming in. So we'll only be there from 11 to 1 o'clock at Coffee Number 1 in Fleet High Street, which is next to the M&S. And we will be sitting there having a lovely cup of coffee with you and just chatting about your property, anything you might be concerned about in terms of property.
So from the smallest thing.
The smallest thing.
Do you know a decorator? Do you know somebody who can cut to my drive?
Well, yes. And
right through to...
It's a community support. I mean, if you think about it, people in your community sometimes feel very alone in these matters. They really do. And it's wonderful to be able to just spare 2 hours and sit with people and listen to what they've got to say.
Bottom line is, if nobody turns up, we have a chat for 2 hours. And prepare for the podcast later in the day.
You know where I'll be. Please save me. I give you full permission.
One thing I would say to that, and again, it's only just occurred to me, because a lot of people don't just want advice on exactly selling their property and the more detailed things like solicitors and values. A lot of people will say, can somebody repair my garden gate? Do you know a good decorator? Do you know a good plumber? If you're out there, if you're a local trade in the Fleet, Hartley, Dogmersfield, Winchfield, basically if you could cover the patch we cover,
come and join us.
Just get in touch with us. All of our contact details are all over this podcast, all over our social media, so I won't bother reciting them now. We'll cover them at the end as well. But I think that'd be really useful for anybody who thinks they do something for a property, and it could even be a dog walking service. It could be anybody who can help people in their home live. Then let us know, and we can create our own sort of local hub of people. And so just come and see us, even if you just walk in and say, love your podcasts. In fact, you could walk in and say, don't really like them very much. You ought to do this and make them better. We'll take it all on the chin, won't we? That, I think, has covered most of what I wanted to talk about. I slightly apologetic for a business promotion, because that's not what these property breakfasts are for.
Yes, I hear you. It's about, at the end of the day, Adrian, we both know it's about informing our clients. And what we are doing is essentially to increase our ability to deliver even better.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is save more time for our clients.
Yeah. And
you can't buy back time.
Ultimately make more money for them as well on the sale of their house, which is pretty important to people. But on that blunt commercial message, I think that's a really good Sunday property breakfast. As I say, I apologise slightly for a bit of self-promotion on it, but I think it's important. We will be running a whole series now next week. We're going to do the home selling workshop, a revision of that. We've got things coming up about probate. We may also be dealing with one which is about separation issues as well, which, and divorce, which sadly, a lot of people who buy and sell through us are going through relationship issues. So we're going to be covering a lot of those as well in the future.
Adrian, just before we go, do not forget the very important date, 4th of July.
4th of July. The election. I did say I was going to cover the election. So no politics. We're not taking any sides on this. The only overall sweeping political view I would take is when I was a lot younger, I've just realised I did politics and economics at A-level, which I've completely forgotten. Don't know why. And when I was at uni, when you're perhaps at your most politically aware, I think if we were talking about an election then, we'd be talking about a polar opposite of what the consequences could be for the property market, depending on, let's be honest, it looks if it's going to be Labour or Conservative unless something very strange happens. And 40 years or so ago, there would have been a real polarised position on what might happen eventually, depending on who comes in. I think post-Thatcher and buying your right to buy, that triggered home ownership in this country beyond what it was before, which was already huge. And so the UK economy is so embedded in the property market that whatever your deep political beliefs may be, you would, as a politician, you really shouldn't mess with it too much, because it will actually mess the economy. So what that means is I think the differences between whoever comes in will be quite subtle. I don't think it's you used to get a situation where, well, if they come in, I'm going to have to do this. And if they come in, I'm going to have to do that. I don't think those massive differences are there anymore. So I think all we'll be commenting on, mainly through social media and maybe in the end of month podcast, the end of June, is we'll probably just be talking about the specific property related things that any of them are mentioned, which will be fine detail as to whether you make a choice on the property issues or not.
Super.
But what I think it might mean for the next month, anybody on the market, anybody looking, anybody already active will carry on. I think anybody who isn't in the market, I think will probably just find it goes quiet for a month. I just think that's logical. It's what usually happens. People, and then on the Friday morning, on the 5th, people will wake up and say they're in power and they'll get on with it and they'll still sell the house, buy the house, whatever. That's my opinion. I don't know if you feel much differently.
No, I agree with you.
You're a little bit younger than me, and you weren't here when Thatcher was doing right to buy and the impact that had on the economy.
Does that make you feel very old?
No, it doesn't. Anyway, on that fine note, I'm not going to talk about age anymore. Candice, thanks as always for the
My pleasure.
podcast.
My pleasure.
We look forward to seeing you again. If you want to see some of the old ones, please do look at Buzz Podcasts. Thanks to the team here for doing these, and we'll see you again next Sunday. Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening to the Sunday Property Breakfast podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. Please feel free to share it with anyone you know who you think might benefit from these exclusive market updates. And if you have a question that you'd like us to answer directly, then just email Adrian at d.fine, that's d.fine.co. See you next week.